So obviously, if you're a big company with loads of disposable income and a wealth of iconic characters, Toys to Life made sense to try out, hence why I'm gonna bitch. Disney Infinity was announced in January of 2013, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, this makes total sense. You take a concept like Skylanders and you apply it to shit that isn't whatever the fuck, and it's poised to print money. And all these iconic characters in the same game interacting with each other? It's like a dream come true. When the game released on August 18th, 2013, I'm sure everybody thought, damn, the boys together at last? Okay, so Disney Infinity isn't exactly what I think many wanted from a Disney Toys to Life experience. Instead, they tried to do something more unique. Like a tapeworm is pretty similar to a pinworm, but the tapeworm went off to do its own thing. They're both still parasites. Disney Infinity was developed by Avalanche Software, who already created the Toy Story 3 video game. This was one of the most high-quality movie games of that generation. The story mode truly felt like the film came to life with the quality visuals and sound, but more notably, the game included a side mode entitled The Toy Box. This was a large open area with different missions to tackle, which then let you customize more and more of the world. It was a really cool addition that they didn't need to do, but showed how much they cared about creating a robust video game based on Toy Story. This was probably the most iconic feature of Toy Story 3, the video game, as this was what most would talk about. So having that developer create a spiritual successor to Toy Story 3 in the form of a Disney Toys to Life game, it just made sense. The problem is, that led Disney Infinity to feel more like a new Toy Story 3 game with everything locked behind a paywall. Disney Infinity follows a bunch of Disney toys doing as Disney toys do, be purchasable. That's the explanation behind the crossover. They're all toys, which is also why the characters are designed this way. A little blocky and simplified, it works though, and helps tie all the characters together under a unifying art style. The starter pack comes with Sully from Monsters University, Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles, and Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. Wow, what a diverse lineup. 2 Pixar characters and Johnny Depp. Disney Infinity was already a little disappointing to actual Disney fans, and there wasn't a lot of classic Disney characters at play here. Out of the 29 characters released, over half were Pixar characters, which, hey, are big parts of Disney's brand, but it's not called Pixar Infinity. That would be like if half the Smash Brothers roster was from Fire Emblem. That's a joke. But even then, the other half of the characters, a lot are from Pirates of the Caribbean and from the most recent Disney properties at the time. Tangled, Frozen, Phineas and Ferb, they all deserve to be here. I just think it's lacking more classic Disney stuff, like The Lion King, Aladdin, even just regular ass Mickey Mouse. We have Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey, but fucking Goofy has to wait because we just had to get the Lone Ranger in here. Who the hell remembers the Lone Ranger 2013 movie? Wrong answer. I think this was an issue right off the bat. Disney Infinity didn't feel like a celebration of Disney, rather it felt more like a promotional vehicle. Like there's a reason the Monsters Inc. characters aren't from Monsters Inc., they're from Monsters University, the 2013 film released 2 months before Disney Infinity. You're telling me I get a Holly Shiftwell figure from Cars 2 while fucking Goofy's on the sidelines? So the character selection is a little weak and a little too marketing centric in my opinion. A Disney Toys to Life game was obviously going to have some characters involved just because they were in recent movies. I just wish it was a little more balanced. But that's not all, as the starter pack also contains this. What does it do? Cleans a toilet, but very poorly. This is the story mode for Disney Infinity, dubbed playsets. They have this transparent look to them all, and they fit on this portion of the Disney Infinity base. You get 3 playsets in one with the starter pack, each based on one of the included characters, the Pirates, Incredibles, and Monsters U story mode. Each of these are completely separate experiences, meaning they have no effect on each other. They're separate stories based on separate movies, and because of that, you cannot use characters that weren't originally from said movie in that movie's playset. You can't use Sully in the Pirates playset or Mr. Incredible in the Goofy one because fucking Goofy isn't in the game. It's just the characters from the original movies in that movie's playset.
Oh my god, finally! Woody and Buzz at the same time?
Somebody call Ripley's Believe It or Not and tell them I don't.
This just kind of defeats the purpose of being a crossover, being titled Disney Infinity. It's even lamer considering these Toys to Life games were pretty popular as co-op experiences. Something a parent could play with their kid. And out of the box, even though you got 3 figures, because of this limitation, you couldn't play multiplayer in any of the playsets. You had to go out and buy another Monsters character, another Incredibles one, another Pirates one. The playsets themselves are fine. They're perfectly reasonable 5-hour adventures in their respective universes. It's like an Incredibles game within the game, and while they all still use the same engine, each playset plays pretty differently, going for different styles of gameplay, though they all still feel like Disney Infinity. But 5 hours per adventure is pretty beefy, especially considering you get 3 of them right out of the box. The problem is, they can get a bit repetitive and tedious, and they don't have the same level of polish a game like Skylanders Swap Force had. Visually, again, it was fine, but nothing crazy to write home about. The gameplay as well was fine. It was mostly just complete the mission for this character, beating up enemies, collecting currency. It was a very standard but fairly quality kids game. My problem is, this is what Toy Story 3 was, and I didn't need to buy all this shit. Instead of being this epic crossover, Disney Infinity more so felt like an excuse for Disney to make shorter, shittier movie tie-in games and just put them into Disney Infinity. It's way cheaper. You can just use all those assets and that game engine and everything. Instead of a Lone Ranger or Monsters University game, just make a playset for Disney Infinity. And you know what? I don't think it's much of a coincidence that the amount of Disney tie-in movie games went considerably down after Infinity's release. This was more of a platform for Disney games and content, not a Disney game in of itself. I wish there was just one big campaign where all the Disney characters were playable and interacting and everything. I feel like with trailers and even the box art showing everybody all together, it kind of leads to disappointment when it turns out these characters all being together in one game, it's kind of pointless. Like, imagine if Smash Brothers was exactly the way it is, but you could only play as Mario characters on the Mario stages, or Zelda characters on the Zelda ones. Like, yeah, it's still a crossover technically, but you're not taking advantage of it. Though, I shouldn't speak too soon, because Disney Infinity features the Toy Box, so unlike Toy Story 3, this one is far more focused on being basically a game engine. Create your own world or edit a pre-built one. You can basically create your own small games in this mode. It's very impressive, and you can use any character you want here. Toy Box is definitely what you'd want to buy Disney Infinity for. You can just run around with a friend and attack each other, place items and vehicles down. It truly does feel like you're a kid playing in a toy box. You could even buy power discs, which were blind bags filled with little bonuses you could place on the base for use in the toy box. This is just getting a bit greedy at this point. There's some cool stuff here. I love the fact you can stack a few power discs on top of each other. You're not limited to just one. But like, come on. This game costs $75 at launch and you're keeping a truck away from me? That's fucked up. And because they're in blind bags, you're gonna be stuck with extras, which is just irritating. This game is already ass expensive. Expensive as ass. You're already clogging everybody's living room with these figures, so now you're gonna do blind bags of objects that have no reason to be sold separately? My daughter choked to death on power discs, and to make it worse, they were doubles. Who the hell wanted the circular ones? These just gave your character stat boosts, and it's like, great, because I didn't feel self-conscious enough. The angular ones are way cooler. They can affect your toy box's background and terrain and give you really fun and cool objects, vehicles, and weapons to play with. Numerous character figures released were only playable via the toy box. Characters with no playset in the game, which these felt like kind of a waste. Like, it's nicer in the game, but you can basically only play them in the level editor. Ooh. It just reaffirms my opinion that they should have had one big campaign that all the characters were a part of. I commend the effort of creating multiple campaigns for certain franchises, but it makes the whole experience feel disjointed. They already made a game called Disney Universe, where you play as generic characters solving light puzzles and beating up enemies, all in different Disney worlds, which feels way more to me what Disney Infinity should have been, which is just Skylanders. I don't know, man. I just feel like, unlike Skylanders, this game felt much more like the figures were just unlocking content in the game rather than, oh, we're bringing the character into the game world. Just look at how long it takes for the character to load when you put it on the base.
Hello there. Want to come join me for some more fun?
Magic. Disney Infinity is fine. I just think the concept of a Toys to Life game with Disney characters spanning so many of their IPs had so much potential. And while what we got was an alright game, I can't help but think something more in line with how Skylanders operated would take advantage of the crossover in figures so much more. However, much like Skylanders, Disney Infinity released on everything it possibly could have. Wii U, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, even iOS and PC. A few months too early for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, though it did get a 3DS version, subtitled Toy Box Challenge. I didn't sign up for this! It's a party game with a gimped base, only one character in geometrically confused plastic. The playsets give you game boards now, so it's literally a Mario Party game. You roll the dice, play a minigame. I assume this version entered development way late in the game, too late to create an actual adventure or a version of the console's toy box, so they cobbled together a party game, which frankly has no right being on a portable. This is just miserable. This was just a way to get another game called Disney Infinity on the 3DS in a short period of time. Outside of that, this game has no business existing.
Well, what more could you possibly ask for? A duck?
That one hit the spot.
1 year later, in 2014, Disney Infinity 2.0 released. You know, they had a chance to fix any and all problems I and many others initially had with Disney Infinity. Spider-Man? Instead of fleshing out the Disney portion of Disney Infinity, 2.0 opted to go in an entirely new direction, focusing on Marvel superheroes. I can't blame them, it was inevitable and does make the crossover that much more cool and exciting. If the damn characters worked in the playsets! With a name like 2.0, I would have assumed this was just Disney Infinity 1 plus more, which isn't really the case. I mean, the toy box, yeah, that's basically an expanded version of the first games, but none of the Disney Infinity 1 playsets work on 2.0. Which, this is so lame. Calling this 2.0 made me think, oh, this is like a replacement for the first game, but no, it's just, that's what they called it. All the 1.0 characters and power discs work in the toy box, but other than that, 2.0 is, in my opinion, a massive downgrade gameplay-wise. Instead of getting 3 playsets out of the box, you only get 1, which is far lamer and shorter than just one of the 3 playsets included previously. In fact, there's only 3 playsets in general for 2.0, all of them Marvel-based, no Disney-related ones, which I feel like is a huge slap in the face to the initial supporters of the series. Yes, I think it's cool Marvel stuff is here, but that's all Disney Infinity 2.0 is, and frankly, I feel like it would have been more fitting to start a spin-off series just called Marvel Infinity. There were a few Disney characters released, only 11 with 2 being from Big Hero 6, which was a Marvel thing, though they labeled it as a Disney original because of the Disney animated film. And we did get some more legacy characters like Tinkerbell, Stitch, Maleficent, Aladdin, and Jasmine, a duck, a dirty fucking duck, a stinky duck. There was a Disney Originals version of the starter pack, one without Marvel characters if this was all you cared about. This came with some toy box games, kind of a consolation prize if you wanted something non-Marvel to play with. These are some games created in the toy box mode based on Brave and Lilo and Stitch. It's kind of cool considering these were made within the level editor, but it just feels like they didn't have enough development time between games. I mean, only 3 playsets and none of them Disney related. This feels like they scrambled to put together something Disney related to play. On top of that, man, this game just doesn't run that well. I'm on the Wii U version, so fuck me, right? But the controls just feel laggy. Frames drop consistently. I don't know, man. This is a weak sequel. They made some improvements here and there, like you can get crossover coins in the Marvel playsets, which allows you to play as certain Marvel characters in Marvel playsets that weren't meant for them. That's stupid. I kind of get you want to keep the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Guardians of the Galaxy playsets so all the cutscenes include just the characters you'd expect to be there, or just the fact you'd want to keep the universes pure, but for the love of God, the premise of these games is that they're a bunch of toys. Well, I can at least kind of understand not having Donald Duck playable in the Avengers playset, not being able to play as Spider-Man in the Avengers playset, or only being able to play as Iron Man in the Spider-Man playset after collecting the crossover coins. This is stupid, I'm sorry. The storyline here is that these are a bunch of toys, so why does it matter about keeping the universes pure? I just feel like the design of this game, at its core, it kind of annoys me. Again, it's like 3 separate small, shitty games available as a part of one, but you still have to buy the games in the form of toys. And this all makes sense when you consider that the playsets were all developed by different studios. That was to keep the quality and quantity of content up. But they could have just made a fun game overall with one main campaign and a toy box mode rather than 3 separate campaigns that confuse the hell out of me in terms of what figures work where. Oh, I'm gonna use Black Widow in the Spider-Man playset. You can't say I didn't try. Sure, the original characters work in the toy box, but nowhere else. It would have been great if the 1.0 playsets were here so you could just flat out replace your old Disney Infinity 1 game, but no, this doesn't feel like Disney Infinity. Honestly, this game has more limitations than you think. The Wii and 3DS missed out on this game, but Xbox One and PlayStation 4 got a taste of the action, plus a PlayStation Vita release in spring of 2015. This is just funny. Well, there was one major LEGO IP that didn't make the cut in Dimensions, and that was because it was the tentpole feature for Disney Infinity 3.0. That's a weird way to spell fucking goofy. Yeah, 2015 was when Star Wars was coming back hard with The Force Awakens, and with it being the other big acquisition Disney made around that time, it just made sense with Infinity 2.0 being themed around Marvel. But while 2.0 was pretty lackluster in my opinion, 3.0 feels like Disney Infinity was finally starting to click. It's the exact same format as before, playsets and toy box, though they went for a far bigger variety this time around. We got playsets for not only Star Wars, but Marvel Marvel and Disney originals as well. They started to dig deeper and offer more classic Disney characters like Baloo and Vanilla Mickey Mouse. It took 3 damn games to get Mickey. The playset's mostly focused on Star Wars, but there was a Marvel multiplayer fighter playset and a couple Disney themed ones, Inside Out, Finding Dory. There was even some Toy Box games that were way more fleshed out than the ones from 2.0, like Toy Box Speedway, a racing game where you can play as any Disney Infinity character you want. And everything just feels way more polished than before. The Toy Box, I gotta be honest, being able to play as any Disney Infinity character from 1, 2, and 3, it makes it so much more fun. I'm kicking Iron Man's ass as Baloo. And you can run around as Donald fucking Duck versus a Star Wars character, add on some flying vehicles and weapons. Disney Infinity 3.0 ain't that bad. I think they put a ton of effort into this iteration and gave it their all. You still can't use previous playsets from older games. I think that's kind of the one thing that stings for me. But 3.0 was set to be a long-lasting game. Instead of developing a 4.0 the next year, Disney opted to release updates for 3.0. You can tell what the newer figures are by the internet symbol on the package, indicating that blue is a privilege, not a right. They had lots of plans for this game, and the future seemed bright. Guess where I'm going with this? In May of 2016, from what seemed out of nowhere, just 8 months after 3.0 released, Disney announced their discontinuation of the Disney Infinity franchise. It was shocking because they just released figures and playsets along with announcing plans for future content. Disney Infinity was always a decent success, but not enough to have 6 developers on the project with over 40 figures released just for this game alone. Infinity was ambitious, but not sustainable. Disney wanted it to be a platform, a place you went to get games based on Disney properties, but did that really make much sense? There are over 100 million PS4 owners, and if you're making an Inside Out game, why limit it to an install base of only those who bought the game with Anakin Skywalker on the front? Why limit it to the confines of the Disney Infinity engine and playstyle? Why lock it behind toys when if you just want to sell toys, just sell toys, and if you want to sell games, just sell games? It felt like Disney Infinity wasn't developed as a Toys to Life game at first, but then they forced it into it. But with a game like Skylanders, that felt more genuine. Sure, they were still trying to sell you this junk, but it felt more justified. At least with 3.0, Disney started to package the power discs in regular packaging, so you knew exactly what you were gonna get, and the starter pack initially sold for only $64.99, which frankly wasn't that bad. I mean, you were still only getting one small portion of the game and only 2 characters in one playset, but hey, it could be worse. Disney not only canceled future plans for Infinity, but closed Avalanche and Disney Interactive in the process. There were loads of figures and playsets in development that just poof! Starting then, Disney decided to just license out their properties to different developers and publishers, to which we got Cars 3 Driven to Win just 1 year later. Some things must die for some to live. This was a bit of a bummer considering 3.0 had loads of potential. It seemed like things were finally going to start to ramp up for Infinity. Plus, there were plans for a 4.0, which would lean way more into the crossover element, featuring a campaign of sorts with all the characters. However, it was either that or Cars 3 Driven to Win. They chose what they chose.